Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second live session. I hope of many more to come. Today, I'm really happy that I won't be alone. I have a co-speaker, a dear friend of mine, who I hope will be joining me very soon. Oh, hello. Great to see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you?
Yes, perfect. How are you? How's your day?
Good. How's your?
Perfect. Great to see so many faces. Let's give them a few more minutes, maybe a minute or two,
Yeah.
then we can kick off. Yeah, so I mean, today we're going to discuss transparency in the fashion industry, and it's a topic dear to both of us. I guess we're both quite obsessed with the fashion industry's problems, which sounds quite strange. Sometimes maybe even to critiquing of, the the practices and solutions and whatnot. But yeah, really happy to have you today, Eirini. Um, should we kick off?
Yeah, sure, as you like.
Amazing. Okay, so yeah, I mean, to quickly introduce myself, my name is Olga, and I'm the founder of Wearfer, which is a small sustainable fashion brand. I guess very much focusing on transparency as our kind of key value and principle. And it's yeah, very very cool to have you on, Eirini. Eirini is my dear friend who I've met previously, and I had the chance to work with her, which is amazing. She is a strategic fashion management student at the London College of Fashion, and she's doing her master's there right now. And she's previously studied women's wear design in Finland. So I think very much lots of knowledge to share, I'm sure. And we both kind of met during our time at Savior Wardrobe, which is a London-based startup that allows you to digitize your wardrobe and save your wardrobe. As funny as that sounds, it's an awesome tool. I'm sure you will you will agree if you are looking for a way to manage your wardrobe better. But I think I'll just pass on the floor to you and let you introduce yourself better than I can ever do. So go for it.
So, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, as you said, my background is in women's wear design and production, which I studied for 3 years in Finland. And then I moved to London, where I worked as a sales assistant at a fast fashion retailer. And then I started my studies at London College, studying strategic fashion management. And I also did my internship at the same time for Savior Wardrobe. And then I also got an offer to work there. So I think that I have a bit of experience from different phases of the fashion supply chain. And yeah, currently I'm doing my dissertation, and the topic is UK consumer attitudes towards the adoption of blockchain technology for creating price transparency in ethical fashion brands specifically, and identifying the impact on consumer trust. And also, I'd say that my first kind of understanding of sustainability in the fashion industry was when I saw the True Cost documentary, which was really upsetting, to be honest. And it showed like the social and environmental impact that fashion industry has, and it kind of changed my whole perspective and lifestyle, because I was a pretty regular fast fashion consumer. So after that I changed. And also I think that was when I was a sales assistant at the fast fashion retailer, seeing people consuming that much in London and consumers returning and buying same stuff every week, that was also something that shocked me.
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, I mean, I guess in terms of the topic today, the question I always ask myself is why is transparency important? Um, And I think especially why is it important in the fashion industry? And I guess maybe it's because of, historically speaking, the fashion industry has been quite a secretive industry. Um, and yeah, in terms of supply chains, I mean, we all know about, the opaqueness of this industry and the inadequate labor conditions, etc. But I think a crop of fashion brands are kind of pulling back a curtain right now and revealing what's behind the doors and in the closed doors and the behind the scenes, which is fun and it's nice. I think it comes from the demand as well of consumers who had enough maybe of those unethical behaviors behind the fashion industry and the operations there. And I think the fashion industry in a way can drive the change beyond this particular industry. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that in terms of, how does that transcend to other industries?
Yes, as you said, transparency is essential. And the thing is that it is pretty common in other industries. And for example, it is used in other supply chains, like in the pharmaceuticals or in the food industry. And there are government regulations that require producers and suppliers to disclose information of their operation. But of course, in those industries, it is more a matter of safety. But academics have also found that, in general, transparency improves the performance of supply chains, of social responsibility issues like labor rights, and transparency also increases consumer trust, which in turn leads to more purchases, which is what retailers want. So transparency is certainly something that consumers are requesting, but most companies are not providing. And recently, the Business of Fashion published the Sustainability Index, where they researched many companies in the fashion. And companies were disclosing information mostly about their internal operations or like environmental and social impacts, but less than half of those companies were sharing a full list of their tier one suppliers. So again, that is problematic, and it's not very common in the fashion industry to be transparent. And when companies are transparent, they are usually selective with what they are going to share with their customers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the point on being selective is quite accurate here. I think every time I navigate any brand, whether sustainable or not, I think a lot of them, they might disclose that a particular product is made in a country. I don't know, it might be a Western country, but then they wouldn't really say, the inner workings of that particular factory. They don't share that information, which I find, quite counterintuitive. So I guess with that, and with Wearfer, I really want to take this truly open book approach to, transparency, and not just kind of supply chain transparency, but also extending it to price transparency, which I see is a movement that's picking up more and more, which I think is very important, and maybe as a temporary solution, because I don't think. Yeah, I think there is a huge gap between, the high street prices, for instance, if you can buy something for £5 versus the same product from a sustainable brand that costs 50, that's 10 times more. That's a huge jump. And I feel like many people would agree that they wouldn't want to be, they wouldn't want to be in a position where they have to pay more for being eco-friendly or ethical. That why would that be more expensive? But then I guess from my own experience building a brand and building product, I think it's important to realize that ethically made products and sustainably made products, they are going to be a little bit more expensive than £5 for sure, just to cover living wages, etc. That's something that I'm a huge advocate for. And I think, yeah, price transparency can drive that education and understanding of consumers in terms of where is this price coming from, and hopefully, add value to the products that today don't have much value. I think if something costs £5, as a consumer, you don't typically give that product much value. So then it's easier to throw away, for instance, and drive that kind of mindless consumption. Yeah, but I think to go back to your point on misinformation, I think that's very interesting, because I think lots of consumers mistrust brands, and I wonder how can transparency drive that?
Yeah, so I look into that in my dissertation. So since I'm interested in technology and passionate about sustainability in the fashion industry, I wanted to combine these two areas and find how the use of blockchain technology could be implemented in order to achieve price transparency in ethical fashion brands. So briefly, for those who don't know, blockchain is a database shared across a network of computers, and data is stored in a block, and that like in many blocks, and those blocks are then chained together. And every transaction recorded to a block is then shared to the network of peers who check and verify the validity of that information. And some advantages of blockchain are that it is decentralized, so no single person or group has control, it is collective. The information is protected using cryptography, and it is immutable and very hard to hack. So blockchain is commonly used as a transparency tool in finance and the fine arts, and even in the mining industry, where they are using it for diamonds, like to check if they are conflict diamonds or not. And there are implementations of blockchain technology also in fashion supply chains, but the consumer-facing use of blockchain is less common. So although there is a growing number of companies providing services using blockchain to trace fashion items and their provenance, or create a digital twin of a clothing item, I haven't found in my research any previous literature using blockchain for creating price transparency in the fashion industry. And I think that a noteworthy point that I've gotten so far is that consumers expect a lot from ethical fashion brands due to the higher price points, as you mentioned. So they want to know about the suppliers and the working conditions that those suppliers have, and the environmental impact and carbon offsets. But even if the company is price transparent, consumers still want more information. So a participant of my survey mentioned that they would be interested to know, for example, that the extra cost that they are paying compared to fast fashion is distributed fairly, and that the employee of the supplier gets that extra bonus in their pay, and they are getting paid a true living wage instead of a minimum wage. So also there was a point about knowing the tax on those costs, and taxes can be really high. But that was really interesting to that some consumers are that interested to know what they are paying for. But I'm not sure if any company is actually doing that and disclosing that much information to their consumers.
No, that's super interesting. I think the consumer perspective is very unique and important in these changes. I mean, without consumer acceptance and I guess trust, then whatever information you share is not important at the end. But having said that, I think if a handful of people find value in that information and the precise information that a brand shares, and if someone, for example, finds value in the information that I share from my brand, then I think it's worthwhile. And I think if we can add value to that product through the information that is shared then we should share it as much as we can. Both, I mean, in both supply chain and price.
Yeah, as you said, there is a growing demand for transparency, and there is also sufficient research that consumers claim to be interested in purchasing ethically and sustainably, but the the percentage of those customers who actually purchase ethically is not as high, like the numbers don't match up. And that is also the case for brands. Like sustainability is a huge buzzword in the fashion industry, and there are great disparities between engagement and action. So unfortunately, greenwashing is a common practice, and that is something that is affecting and confusing the consumers and their purchasing decisions. So if you ask me, transparency should be that all companies should have, but that is not attainable. I don't know why. But in particular, ethical and sustainable brands should be transparent because it is in their values and they claim to be responsible. So what are they hiding?
Yeah, 100%. I think when I started navigating brands and sad reality, yes. Sorry, when I started navigating brands, kind of doing my own research in terms of, what is disclosed and what's not, even from a sustainable brand, I found, well, there's a fly. I found that, yeah, I found that actually, they disclose certain information. So they might tell you that the working conditions or the hours worked by garment workers, but then they don't really say, they don't disclose the name of the manufacturer. So actually, as a consumer, I cannot really go and check that data, that information for myself. And it's obviously not supported by a third party or anyone else. And so how much am I willing to trust, that information? So I think it's definitely, a problem, not just with fast fashion, but it's a problem in sustainable kind of sustainably claimed brands as well. And as you said, I think they hold more responsibility because, for example, of the higher prices, if anything. If you want to charge higher prices, then I think there is much more value you should return to your customers.
Yeah, but in the fashion supply chain, there are many stakeholders. There are the brands, the suppliers, the consumers, the organizations, lawmakers, and I think everyone plays a significant role, and everyone should work independently and together. But I think that in the fashion industry specifically, because it has that big social and environmental impact, it should be more strictly regulated by governments, and there should be change from the top.
Tuned into to a conference this morning, which kind of surprised me because it was a climate change conference, and part of the discussion was about the automotive industry and the building kind of construction. And what they said there was that actually companies like conglomerates and big organizations, they are asking governments to impose regulations such as, I don't know, 25% recycled content. And if you don't have that, then you pay more tax. And organizations, it's never, that way around. It's usually the other way around. But maybe, pressure is there on the governments as well. And I mean, it's so important that we all play a role, governments, citizens, corporations, companies, etc. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the time and I would love to get in some questions. And we did have two really great questions before from someone who I'm not sure is here. But the first one I think is very much for you, Eirini, because it's all about blockchain. And the question was, will blockchain, or will it ever be the default, or could it be the default transparency tool for the fashion industry?
Okay, so I can only speak from my personal experience so far from the research that I'm doing for my dissertation. But from the sample that I've got replying to my survey, people are showing that they are positive and accepting of blockchain as a transparency tool, as a price transparency tool. And it definitely has the potential to be a transparency medium, and it is used in many other industries. So I think it definitely has the potential, but I'd say that companies and consumers need to be first educated and then getting used to it, and that way they will be able to trust it, because trust is a big issue, and there are many cases that consumers haven't responded well to a new technology. But I definitely think that it's a step to the right direction
Mm,
towards transparency, but there is still a long road ahead. So we'll
yeah,
see.
I think, I mean, I've been thinking why trust is so important in the fashion industry. And I think, I mean, part of it is that misinformation and the greenwashing. Uh,
Yeah,
I think, I mean, just because a brand claims they're sustainable or environmentally friendly, I mean, they just might be spreading misinformation. Um, and you know what's right, what isn't. That's interesting. Uh, and yeah, it kind of undermines the trust in many ways.
yeah. So I can ask you the second question. So, how can I, as a consumer, navigate the space of fashion transparency?
Okay, cool question. Uh, yeah, I think there are many levels in the ways in which you can navigate this space, which is not a very easy place. But I think first of all, I mean, going back to the point of who's responsible, I think we are all responsible. I mean, we are all citizens, and I always look at it as we are all citizens and we all do different things. So whether you happen to be in government and you can make very important decisions, and you have, I don't know, policy making power, or whether you are working at a hairdresser's and you can just educate your customer who you're cutting the hair of. It doesn't really matter. I think we all can do little things to navigate this space. But I think in terms of transparency and as a consumer, particularly of the fashion industry, there are many things that I think you should take responsibility of. And firstly, it's that educational aspect. I think there are certain things that you could look out for. So certain certifications, like I'm sure everyone's heard of Fair Trade or B Corp, all these kind of standards and certifications. And I think even going beyond that, whenever you kind of look at, for example, the content and what materials your clothes are made of. So you can look at GOTS, for example, who also take and cover labor conditions. So these are the kind of very easy things that you can do as a consumer to become more educated and understand what's really happening, and can I trust certain information better. Um, I mean, another thing that may be better for us lazy people are services such as Good on You, who do that kind of dirty work for you. So they rate brands, and you can really easily get a gist of how ethical or sustainable they are across planet and people and animals, etc. So that's a solution as well, and one way to do it. I mean, a very, very simple thing is to just use your common sense and understanding of what you see on your computer. Go on the about page of that website or that brand and see, do they just, put a bland statement of we care about people who make our clothes, or do they actually disclose more information about it? Did they give you some tangible, actionable ways to get involved? And yeah, check and double check and triple check the information that they give you. But yeah, I think we're in a good time because next week is the Fashion Revolution week. So Fashion Revolution is a great global organization, a movement, who is campaigning for better labor conditions, and transparency is a huge part of it. So you can get involved that way. Check out Fashion Revolution. Fashion Revolution Week starts April 19th. So it's a great way to ask brands where they make products and by who and what materials, etc. So you can demand that from brands. And I think that's a really cool way to get involved. I think that's kind of what I would suggest. I'm not sure if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, no, as you said, I think the first thing is just ask brands and show them that you actually care and you want to know. So that's a way to push them to
Mm.
provide currency. So it's so simple.
I think we have a question, or do we? Let me just check that. Oh, what's blockchain? Eirini, I'm sorry, you'll have to explain that one again. Maybe in some granny form.
So blockchain is a database that is shared across a network of computers, and data is stored inside blocks, and those blocks are then chained together. And you can store any kind of information in those blocks. It's very commonly used for transactions, and those transactions are then recorded in the block and are shared to the whole network, and the peers in the network are checking them and verifying if the transaction is valid.
Mm. And I don't know if I'm right to imagine this, but in the fashion kind of world, would it be that, I don't know, you have your cotton manufacturer who logs the information and then you move it on to maybe the one who processes into and makes the fabric. Then they process that information to then someone who will assemble the product, and then that information is stored. Is that roughly?
Yeah, so instead of having information in silos, so the cotton supplier has their information, the manufacturer has their information, the information is shared across the whole supply chain, and everyone knows the steps that the product has gone through.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I hope that makes it clear. It makes it clear for me. So thank you for that. I don't know if there are any other questions. Um, yeah, used largely in industries like fresh produce. I assume maybe that's blockchain as well. I'm not sure. What is Wearfer aiming post-COVID? Well, who knows what post-COVID world brings. I hope we don't go back to business as usual. I mean, we've had these discussions about COVID and the change of mindsets, and actually COVID being in a way an accelerator for more eco consciousness. Hopefully that's the case. And I think COVID also brings more localized production, because obviously it's harder now to travel, and it's a good thing at the end of the day, maybe. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I think we can wrap up. I think this is a very vast topic, and we could be talking about it forever, and we've just kind of touched the surface. But yeah, hopefully we'll get to do this again, either on transparency or other topics. There are many problems, so many more to have. But yes, thank you so much, Eirini, and thank you all for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you a great evening.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.